Hello, hello everyone. Good afternoon. We'll just give everyone a minute to join and then we'll get started. Thanks to Justin and Sean. Hi, guys. All right,
Hello, everyone.
awesome. Okay, we will just get started. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to Elmo's latest webinar, the AI Capability Trap. Thank you for joining us today. This is the second in our AI capability series. A few weeks ago, we did explore why AI adoption isn't translating to impact. And today we're going to dive deeper into why you might be using AI every day and yet nothing is changing on an organizational level and how a two-way playbook might change this for you. So, as we are meeting from various locations, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting today. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present as early innovators and acknowledge their significant contributions to science and technology throughout land, water, and culture. So, a quick admin from us. You are in listen only mode, so you can hear us, but we can't hear you. This webinar is being recorded and we'll send it to you tomorrow, along with the slide deck. I encourage you to ask your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat as we go along. We'll try and get to them at the end, and if we don't have time, we'll send a follow-up. So let me introduce you to our speakers. First, we have Dr. Sean Gallagher. He is the founder of Humannova, Australia's leading AI workforce consultancy, with a mission to build tomorrow's AI workforce today. Sean supports leaders with tailored AI training, governance frameworks, and leadership alignment programs. In the past 6 months, Humannova has trained thousands of people across multiple industries, including through a partnership with us. Sean is also Ari's AI expert, delivering its AI for HR short course. Humanova's third annual National AI Workforce Report, Why Australia is Not Ready for the AI Era, launches later this month. And second, a familiar face on our webinars, Justin Meier, Head of Talent Capability and Workplace Experience at ELMO. Justin has been instrumental in the I cannot say that word, operationalizing adoption and impact of AI at ELMO. So let's just dive straight in. Sean, if you want to share your screen, I'll stop sharing mine.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Elise, and lovely to be with you all today. Joss and I are looking forward to having a lovely interactive session with you today. And in some respects, it's a good segue from the last webinar that Elmo had about why adoption in HR. While we had, in 2023, 2024, we're all super excited about AI and beginning to integrate it into the work that we do. And it hasn't quite achieved that level of expectation. Today, we're going to unpack why and help you understand how, AI is incredibly powerful, but there might be some blind spots. There might be some factors within every workplace that will help you overcome in order to get the best out of AI. So, Justin and I are looking forward to having an interactive discussion with you. But we're going to start off with a poll. And Elise is going to activate the poll in the chat function. And it's simple as this. Which behavior is most important to develop AI fluency? Is it frequency of use? How many times you use AI during a day? Is it time invested in using AI? So how much time you spend working with AI in a day? Or is it both frequency and time? So very quickly, choose your option response, and Elise will tell me how the numbers are coming through
Yeah.
as we're going.
Yeah, we've got pretty much everyone has voted, with the majority being C, both frequency and time at 84%.
Fantastic. Look, I kind of knew it was a bit of an obvious answer, but in some respects, it's also a want to begin to change. A lot of people think that frequency of use has been the way that we have traditionally measured. And this is part of the change in the mindsets that Justin and I want to begin to convey to you as HR leaders, but also in your role as leaders of people across your organizations. We want to move the conversation on from adoption, and adoption has been measured in frequency. And today we're going to show you why time spent on AI is really very important. Thanks very much for your participation. So, what just happened? Well, a lot of things have happened in the AI world recently, and there's been a lot of headlines. Let me just pick one of them for you. In October last year, 2025, Mike Cannon-Brookes, CEO of Atlassian, said 5 years from now, we'll have more engineers working for our company than we do today. Well, fast forward 5 months, they cut 1,600 jobs, 10% of their global workforce, including 500 jobs here in Australia. And they replaced their CTO with two AI-focused CTOs. The reason is that it's not necessarily that the business is failing today. In fact, the business is doing really well. Revenue is up, margins is up, but it's the threat of what AI is going to have on Atlassian tomorrow, as in its future business model. So, of course, people say, well, it might be a bit of AI washing, and it wasn't really because of AI. This is prospective, and they're preparing for a future in which the market expects less workers because of AI. And this just happened in 5 months. Justin.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point around AI washing, Sean, because I think a lot of the things that I've been reading recently, there's a bit of a mixed bag out there around the perspectives. But yeah, I agree that a lot of this is doing things in advance of where they anticipate the work going. So organizations are potentially restructuring and thinking about where the future is actually taking us right now.
So where are we in terms of what's gone on? As you know, back in 2023, we all got to get to know ChatGPT and then Claude and Gemini. All of a sudden agents are coming along. So we've really progressed significantly in terms of the forms of AI that we use in work. But one of the things that while we're talking about agents, and agents are very much going to impact WiseTech, they're going to impact Atlassian. Agents are going to make your business faster, but they're not going to make it smarter. And only your people can do that. Only your people can drive value creation for your business. Yet, in the research that we've done and we'll be publishing very shortly, across workplaces here in Australia, the most common use of AI is still summarizing an email. We already have immense capability in AI, yet why is that capability not being seen in workplaces across the country? Justin?
Yeah, I think this is where there is still like such a huge amount of opportunity and possibility for organizations with AI. Like so many organizations that I speak with are still kind of stuck in that lower value use cases, thinking about usage of LLMs, despite the technology leap. So I think there'll be a lot more progress I see and anticipate over the next 12 months with the integration of agentic AI.
So one of the things that we want to convey is adoption is not it's the wrong target, or more to the point, it's no longer the right target. If we look at the data that we're getting, it says that AI has arrived. 70% of knowledge workers in Australia use AI at least weekly. Less than 10% don't use AI at work at all. So in some respects, AI has arrived. Adoption is there. But adoption almost says nothing about whether your workforce has the capability to collaborate with AI. And our ability to collaborate with AI is fundamentally the core element of how we will work with AI as it continues to evolve. And if I got you to do a straw poll of what you think the future AI worker look like. Now, going back to that poll we did at the beginning, we said both frequency and time. And we can all imagine that very soon that a worker using AI would use AI multiple times a day and for many hours throughout the day. Yet what we find is that while adoption is widespread, capability isn't. only 1 in 8 workers have developed what we call true AI fluency, using it multiple times a day and more than an hour a day. Justin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think your research really aligns with Elmo's own research. In our recent HR industry benchmark report, our data showed a real similar pattern. 93% of Australian HR teams are using AI, but only half of them actually use it. I'm sorry, but over half of it you use only occasionally. And then 6% of organizations actually have more than 3/4 of their workforce using approved AI tools day to day. So that really connects to that level up from, frequency of use to the actual the combination of frequency and time. And I think, reflecting on the adoption metrics, so they do have a time and a place, but mostly when you're at the earliest stages of your AI journey, but they won't really help you make the shift from usage to impact.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And I think that that's probably right. Clearly we want people to adopt the technology, but that is not a destination. That's purely just a beginning condition for its adoption. So in the report that we'll be releasing shortly, you've probably all read various reports on AI and its uptake in the workforce. And as you probably know, most people who have surveyed workers, how often are you using AI in work? And so frequency is quite often the metric that's used. For the first time, we think anywhere globally, Humannova has measured time investment. So we did a national workforce survey of over 1,000 knowledge workers with our survey partner YouGov. So the data is as good as it gets from anywhere. And what we found is that 3 in 5 workers across the country, knowledge workers, are what we call dabblers. They're low frequency and low time investment. So they have some exposure, but very little integration into the work that they do. There's an odd bunch, only 3% of them, who we call deep divers. So they barely, they have a very low frequency of using AI, but when they do, they spend a lot of time on it. So that is very much the exception. What is more common in terms of advancement is what we call workflow integrators. So again, about 1 in 8 workers, they have high frequency. They're using it multiple times a day, but they're not spending a lot of time on AI as they do it. So they're building the habit, but they don't have the depth. And as you all nicely pointed out in the poll at the beginning of the webinar, and those 1 in 8 are what we call AI fluent. They have both high frequency and high time investment in it. This is really critical. And as you probably realize, this is what the future AI worker is going to look like. But in our view, we're not ready for this AI era. Only 1 in 8 workers across the country meet the low bar of using it several times a day and for more than an hour. One of the key distinctions between frequency and time, and they're both critical to work together. Frequency indicates that AI has integrated into a worker's workflow, but time indicates they've integrated AI into their thinking. And that's a really important distinction. Justin.
Yeah, I think some of these outcomes and statistics really sort of connect with some of the research that we had from last year, where 32% of HR leaders really expected AI to be transformative. But yet 12 months on, only 15% said it actually delivered. And some of the barriers cited were the lack of skilled people, the lack of expert guidance, and really a lack of time to experiment. So connected to the frequency and time model there. And really, if organizations aren't translating adoption into impact, then the real question for me is whether people are using AI deeply enough, often enough, and also well enough to change how work actually happens.
That's I'm pleased that you highlighted that. It really is about more than frequency, but also the depth of use. I want to pivot now we've been talking about behavior, right? How many times and how often and how much time. I want to pivot to capability. So capability is more than just skills. Clearly, you need skills in order to use AI. How do you frame a task? How do you write a prompt? How do you check for outputs? And for the most part, all of us have done that type of training for those foundation skills, teaching us how to use AI as a tool. But just in the way that we work with a colleague, we all have colleagues that we work with, and if we give them a particular task, you know their strengths and their weaknesses, you know where they're going to do well, you know where they maybe need some help in getting a better answer. That is exactly the way that we think about AI. It's about building up an intuition for AI. And it's this judgment to be able to collaborate with AI, knowing when to trust it, knowing when to push back, and how to direct it. And this only builds through deep engagement. In other words, time. Training can absolutely accelerate this development. So when we talk about AI capability, we're talking about way more than just the skills to use a tool. We're talking about the intuition, your capability to be able to collaborate with an intelligence. And, skills will help you do routine tasks. It's the intuition that's going to allow you to do much more complex work. Justin.
Yeah, I think many organizations are still heavily focused in that sort of AI skill bucket. And that focus, while it's helpful and can be impactful, it really narrows the potential and possibilities that, working and having AI intuition can really unlock. So what I've seen across our organization as well is that those with a good AI intuition really differentiate themselves in the value and the impact they can actually create. So they're usually the ones that are kind of leading the charge with integrating AI into workflows or completely reimagining how work gets done, whilst also bringing their colleagues along with them.
We're very proud of the work that we did in partnering with Justin and his team and all of ELMO. We trained, the team from Australia to New Zealand to the Philippines, and we focused on intuition, really building on the foundation skills that most people had, but really taking it to that level of getting them to understand what it's like to work with an intelligence. So building up mental models for working with AI, and great to see the terrific outcomes from that. Just want to give you a little bit of a map. Because there's a lot of terms and a lot of concepts, and it's probably easy to get mixed up. So a little bit of a taxonomy here. And to show you how we're talking about behavior, how it drives capability, and ultimately the value that gets created in your organization. So we've been talking about behavior, the amount of time we invest in working with AI, as well as the frequency of how often we use AI. This drives capability, and it's almost a neat correlation. We found that foundation skills, so the skills to use AI as a tool, they build up and are largely related. 88% of the contribution of building up the capability of foundation skills comes from frequency of use. But our ability to have a mental model about AI, that deep intuition, 92% of that comes from deep engagement, time investment. And in terms of the value that both of those elements of capability drive for value across your organization, your skills will help deliver better efficiency and productivity in administrative and sort of basic functional tasks. So for you as HR leaders, the stuff you do in a routine kind of way. But it's the intuition that is going to help you as HR leaders drive much more valuable outcomes for your organization. And I know that you know that as AI is going to continue to increase in its sophistication and capability, that the work that you do as HR leaders down the bottom of the pyramid there in basic functional and admin is going to diminish. And so intuition is going to become way more important for you as AI continues to evolve. So both capabilities are really important to apply across all levels, but it's intuition particularly that contributes to that higher value work. Justin.
Yeah, and I think with a combination of the time investment and frequency of use, we fundamentally have to rethink how we work. We can't let the busyness get in the way. And in the world of AI, we really must build new habits, think differently, and kind of leave behind some of those established ways of working from the past to sort of free up some of that time, to really focus on experimentation and play.
Great. All right. Poll number two. So get your fingers out, get them ready. Thank you, Elise. Which level of worker do you think has the highest level of fluent AI fluency in your organization? Senior decision makers, middle managers, or general knowledge workers, so workers that don't have any management role. Remember, fluency is those that are able to spend more than an hour a day and multiple times a day using AI. Which of those levels of worker do you think has the highest level of AI fluency? All right, Elise, how are the numbers coming through?
Yeah, we'll end the poll now, and we are looking at about 55% who say general knowledge workers, 32% middle managers, and 13% senior decision makers.
Fantastic. Well, I want you to screenshot that, Elise, and we're going to send it out to everyone because it is totally upside down. Senior leaders are emerging as the AI fluent workers in organizations across Australia, but their workforce is not. Now, this is something that is, looking through the data and I thought, this is a really strange result. And so I went back to the survey data that we had from our work we did the previous year, and this signal was already emerging. And so the report that we're focusing on this year really deep dives into why this is the case. And of course, we're going to give you the answer today. But ultimately, there could be a blind spot for leaders, right? And I'll go into the reasons as to why senior leaders are able to build up a fluency way more than their direct reports or the general team members across organization. But if senior leaders think that AI is this most amazing thing, right? Yet they think that the rest of the workforce would likewise. This is this blind spot. I think about my brother. He's the CFO for an ASX 200 company. They do 250 million a year in revenue. He has automated away 75% of his job with AI. And he thinks, well, AI is the best thing ever. And so, being a CFO, he's going through the expenditures, looking at every single employee as a budget line item. And well, how many people can, how can we rationalize the workforce? And I pushed back and said, your experience of AI is different from your team. And after Justin comments on the slide, we're going to show you exactly why.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack. I found this slide really, really interesting with the research. A couple of things that I've been thinking about is, are leaders overestimating organizational readiness? So if they have a higher level of AI fluency, do they unintentionally assume that the rest of the organization is closer to readiness than it really actually is? Another one is around with senior leaders, like what's their role? So if they're the most AI fluent, what's their roles in actually coaching the layers of leadership below them? So that's another one. But really, probably the most impactful one for me is that sort of 8% middle manager fluency rate. That really stands out because our middle managers are a critical leverage point. So this cohort really translates strategy into day-to-day work. So if they're not confident with AI adoption, we'll stall between ambition and execution. So that's a really big call out for me. And then the last one is when there's such a discrepancy in AI fluency across your organizational layers, you really need to make sure that your learning pathways that you're building aren't just a one size fits all, that you're thinking about, the different level of fluency throughout your organization.
Yeah, so the question is, why are senior leaders 5 times more likely to be AI fluent than general knowledge workers? It comes down to what we call friction. And it's actually the structure of work itself. We call it the structure trap. And what happens is that if you're a general knowledge worker, it's the work that resists you from using AI, not any lack of motivation or lack of training. Because what we're finding is that general knowledge worker, they work in system coupled or structured environments where they have to pull data out of the CRM or the HRIS. They have to redact it. They have to put it into AI. They have to add the context. Then they have to work on it with AI and the outcome and then put it back into some other system. That is way too much friction. And general knowledge workers aren't using AI because of the friction that they feel in using AI. And you can see some friction mechanisms there. Shuttling data between various systems, difficulty on the write back, context reentry, approval chains, compliance overhead, and so forth. So it's not that general knowledge workers don't, of course, they want to use AI, but it's their work that's resisting them from using it. Senior decision makers, so the senior leaders in your organization, they work in unstructured, discretionary environments. I look at my brother and he says, well, today I'm going to do such and such. The general knowledge worker doesn't have that luxury. And senior decision makers, they don't work in such a system coupled way. They're not constantly in the CRM or the HRIS and working within systems. They have much more ability to build on AI as they're working through their day. And this is a huge distinction, and we're quite worried about this bifurcation that is starting to happen in workforces across Australia, and why leaders have this blind spot. They think AI is the best thing since sliced bread, yet that is not the experience of most workers. Justin.
Yeah, I think in this context, many employees might feel sort of trapped in the workflows if you're only using sort of AI, for smaller, lower value tasks versus actually looking at workflows in totality. Trying to integrate AI into sort of elements of that may actually feel a little bit harder and more fragmented, and another step in the process, which might then cause a drop off in adoption and usage. So maybe that could be why frontline adoption maybe lags the leadership enthusiasm.
Yep. All right, we're talking a lot here. We're having a great time. Hope you guys are too. Let's speed it up a little bit. But we wanted to show you that what's actually happening is that there's a divide appearing in workforces. There's a flywheel for a few, but a trap for the many. So if you're a general knowledge worker, you're keen to use AI, and then you start to confront with all this friction. So you don't use it much. You have fewer engagements where you're using AI. You end up developing a much weaker intuition because you have much shallower use. It's lower perceived value of AI, which reinforces itself, a negative feedback loop. But if you're in an unstructured work environment, it's totally the opposite. It becomes a flywheel. Every time you use AI, you get to use it more deeply. You see the huge value you get out of it, and you continue to deepen and to become more sophisticated with your intuition. Justin.
Yeah, and I think for our role as P&C professionals is to really disrupt and interrupt the trap before it becomes a talent inequality. So some groups keep gaining high value work while others stay at the base. AI adoption sort of stops just being a tech issue and becomes a workforce equity, capability, and even a job design issue.
So, in terms of coming back to the work value pyramid, which this is just to re-emphasize what we showed you before, it's the deep engagement that is really going to matter. And as we said before, 92% of intuition is built through the time that we spend with AI. Training can accelerate that, but deep engagement is really critical. The one thing I want to make from this slide is that agents are going to eat up and to hollow out the amount of routine work that you do in organizations. Now, it's really important that we give all of those workers that do routine work the opportunity to develop advanced intuition, because as agents become more and more capable and start to take over work, we want to have given them the chance to work at higher value work rather than be replaced. Justin?
Yeah, no, I think as more repetitive, lower value tasks are managed by agents, the thing that's always top of mind is how do we actually prepare and how are we preparing our employees and workforces to operate at that higher level of work value? So it's really important in building that AI intuition so they can really help bridge the gap and prepare themselves for that. And then also, as we move up the work value pyramid, like how do we rethink the structure of work and not just expect people to be moving at a faster pace, managing greater breadth or volume of work? So there's a phrase coined AI brain fry. And for those who haven't heard of that term, it was coined by researchers at Boston Consulting Group. And it's really used to describe the mental fatigue from excessive AI use or oversight beyond a person's cognitive capacity. So I think there's some of the things that I'm sort of grappling or thinking about is like, how do we move people up that, how do we prepare to move people up that work value pyramid? But then also how do we structure work as people are at that, doing more work at that higher level to ensure that, they don't experience burnout and overload of AI usage.
Yeah, we talk about this. Thanks, Justin. We talk about this in the report, and often workers, or in fact, the most common impact that workers expect from AI is more efficiency and better productivity, which, of course, that's what we want AI to deliver. But it neglects some really valuable other outputs like improved quality, redesigned workflows, innovation, creativity. The upside from AI is as valuable as the efficiency and productivity that we get from it. Justin, I'm going to pivot through this slide and come to this bit, just mindful of time. So, in terms of generation, a lot of the training that is out there on the market, and many of you probably have done it, it's been really helpful. What we're calling Generation 1 training, which delivers skills, shows us how to use AI as a tool. But we think that, and what we developed and delivered with ELMO is this Generation 2 training. So building up intuition. Of course, it doesn't replace the fact that we need to have deep engagement time working with AI, but we can accelerate intuition by helping everyone understand how to work with an intelligence, how to collaborate one. So a really practical application of AI on solving complex problems, understanding context, a whole bunch of things go into intuition in this Generation 2 training. And so we think that as agents become more sophisticated, as work really begins to transform, we need to pivot. Gen 1 training was great up until now, but we really need to focus on Gen 2. Justin.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that layering. So you're thinking about how do we set the scene with foundational skills and ensure that everyone is at the same level from a foundational AI capability perspective, but then really leveling up and the ability to accelerate through utilizing and leveraging AI to intuition. What I've seen that do within the organization is allow for greater sort of ownership and empowerment for people to run with and identify those opportunities themselves instead of thinking other people pushing AI down onto them. So I think that was really valuable.
So as HR leaders, and particularly in your role, not just within HR, but also in terms of your sitting around the table with decision makers across your organizations, how can we begin to ensure that workforce AI capability continues to improve, that we continue to augment and empower workers across our organizations? Yes, training is critical, but as you're seeing, providing training in an environment where the structure of work works against you isn't going to deliver the benefits that you really want from that investment. And so we've developed this two-sided playbook because, well, there's two sides to the problem, and neither works alone. Very briefly, the people side, so having Generation 2 training. This is about building this workforce AI capability, having leadership alignment, having a change management process, but also having a governance system and framework in place. Way more than safe use of AI, it really has to be much broader than that. But on the structure side, understanding how AI could integrate into a workflow. So doing workflow analysis, which is what we did with Elmo. Assigning time to allow deep thinking and deep, engagement with AI. Hackathons and sprints we've done with many of our clients, and they love the hackathons building stuff, right? And then, of course, mentoring with those who are more capable with AI. So the people side is building workforce capability, and on the structure side, we sort of see it as building AI solutions to mitigate friction, but also to build solutions, build stuff, right? And there's this nice flywheel between the two. Justin, you have some really great points on this slide.
Yeah, I'd like to spend a bit of time on this. And Sean, if I reflect on the conversations we've had, probably just over a year ago until now, I think this playbook has been really helpful to kind of really sort of shape our thinking, spark ideas around where we should focus our energy and what are some of the things that we can actually do to help us on that journey. And it's not just focused on training, but it's thinking about how do we build capability in the flow of work. So I'm going to talk on the left side first, so the people side, around some of the things we've done in ELMO over the past sort of 12 months. I'm going to hit the governance side of things first. So obviously we're a people technology company. We're handling sensitive people information. So the governance side was really where we invested our earlier time. And we're talking about over 18 months to 2 years ago. We set up, AI policies to ensure that people understood how we want them and how they should utilize AI. Even things like ensuring that we have security reviews on all of the tools and technologies that we're integrating into the business. And we ensured that we built training so before they got access to different AI tools like Gemini as an example, or Glean, which is the current tool that we're using heavily across the business, is making sure that people were upskilled and understood, the boundaries and how to use it in a safe and responsible way. And we also integrate that into our onboarding workflow as well to ensure that we catch people into the organization. We're also seeking to be one of only a handful of Australian businesses that are ISO 42001 certified. And what that actually is the standard for helping organizations govern, manage, and use AI responsibly, safely, and transparently. So that's a really important thing that we've been embarking on as an organization. But really critical as well is just overall clarity and agreement on ownership. For us, and one of our earlier learnings, I think, was that, it's not just a technology problem. And I think, both the people and culture leaders within our organization and our leaders within our technology department have never worked more closely together, because we see the whole system and the importance of that close collaboration in trying to move us on that transformation journey. So that's the governance piece. And then from a leadership standpoint, this is really, really critical. And we kicked off our financial year with the launch of an AI vision and charter, which was led by our CEO. And that really sort of set out a clear narrative and provided expectations of what we expected from our people and what we really wanted to achieve as an organizations. And then backed up with our senior leaders really role modeling usage, sharing wins and discussing different use cases and trying to get that scalability across the business. We integrated KPIs at the start of the financial year as well relating to AI to be trying to really push the boundaries and ensure that, people were actually delivering and engaging with AI. We also refreshed value to be more sort of, trying to push the boundaries even further. And we brought our people into that process to sort of co-create and co-design what that value would look like. And that was really trying to move from a culture of innovation to a culture of pushing the boundaries and reimagining what was really possible. And then lastly, from a leadership perspective, was kind of getting an agreement at our executive team around integrating AI proficiency as a core competency. So no matter what role you sit in within the business, there's an expectation of a level of capability that you apply to your work, no matter what that work actually is. Then if we move into the training side, this is obviously where you, Sean, and Humannova have really helped us, sort of design that and deliver that through the business, because, I'm not an expert within AI. I'm constantly, evolving my knowledge and trying to move forward, but it's really important to engage with people who are experts. And so I think we really firstly started with adoption. Funny you mentioned adoption earlier on in the presentation, but we did start with adoption. We had tools that we're investing in, and we wanted to make sure that our workforce had the skills needed to really maximize the impact of these tools. So we really targeted on that through an all hands educate day. Then we moved on to focus on more of those foundational skills you've talked about in your Gen 1 sort of training. So how do you frame tasks? How do you write prompts? Checking outputs, verification, and ensuring the safe and responsible use of AI. Then we leveled up again to focus on that Gen 2 level of training, which is really sort of getting our people to understand like what actually a workflow is, for them to be able to identify the different workflows, and then to be able to identify where is the friction in the system, and how can we sort of fix that friction with leveraging AI to solve real problems within the business. So not just focusing on the task level. And as I mentioned before, I think that moving up the chain and really having that intuition allowed for confidence in collaborating with AI, and that our people, we've seen, the journey that they've been on, and the build of capability come through in how they go about proactively identifying those opportunities. So it's not leaders necessarily having to go, I want that workflow addressed and looked at. People are coming up with ideas to reimagine those workflows. So I think that's been really critical. And then more recently, we've leveled up into that agentic space and thinking about agentic and workflow capabilities. So not just tool literacy, but focusing sessions on sort of agent fundamentals, multi-step reasoning, orchestrating tools and data sources, etc. So we've been really focused on foundational and then leveling up capability as we go and building on that. And then change management, we really treated AI as a culture change program, not just a tech rollout. So we've been really explicit and had emphasis on and ensuring that leadership alignment, at the top. The governance was in place, and then the activation from a capability perspective. Then if I move to the structure side, the workflow analysis work that you've talked about, which was in the Gen 2 training that we ran, and that was really important, arming our people with the skills to really run and build agents themselves. We've done hackathons, competitions. So we did an AI hackathon under the theme AI that amplifies and empowers people. And then we ran a Freestyle Friday, which was thinking about, 2 hours every Friday for the month of October. We allocated in a competition style format where we gave sort of loose guardrails, but ideally it was about trying to solve problems, in the flow of work through integrating AI. So what was the problem? What was the solution we came up, and how do we actually measure the benefits of that? So that was some of the things around dedicating AI time. But what else we've seen across the business is that some teams will allocate full team meetings to actually, run a bit of an innovation session and identify a bottleneck or a problem and solve it with AI. Or even just booking in an hour a week to make sure that they're really giving that space and time to experiment and play with AI. And then lastly is that sort of AI fluent pairing is the community of practice or a champions group network. So you've got your super users and go-to experts. How do you partner with them to sort of bring the collective workforce along and build that capability over time?
Thanks, Justin. Well, we've got one more section, but we're not going to do that right now because we're going to have it in the show bag that's going to arrive in your inbox over the next little while. And that's going to be focusing on governance. Sounds boring, but really important to make sure that we get it right. I'm going to throw to Elise to pull out some questions that you have. But in the meantime, if you don't mind my asking you, if you're interested in the report that's coming out in a couple of weeks' time, you can pre-register for it using that QR code. So if you have your phone handy, that would be terrific. But in the meantime, I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that come along. And I'm sure Justin is as well. But there we are in terms of the presentation. And I will stop sharing. But thank you.
No, you're all good. Thank you so much, Sean and Justin. That was super informative. I love the research and then the practical approach. I hope everyone attending today did as well. So as Sean mentioned, we will send the pack at the end. We are interested to know where you feel your organization most needs to focus right now based on today, whether that's enablement, leadership, governance, and culture for experimentation. That helps us understand what you're looking to build. We have covered quite a lot today. Read the pack. There are time for questions. I know there is one question here. It's for Justin, which is how did Elmo create the space for its people to build AI intuition alongside their day jobs across all levels of the company?
Yeah, so thanks, Elise. I think I mentioned, touched on it briefly a little bit before, is like how do you actually build capability in the flow of work? And that's where I think things like the Freestyle Fridays, where we kind of agreed as a business and had leadership support into giving 2 hours, time to sort of experiment and play. I think that was really critical. And then just, yeah, educate days. I think all of those things all along that journey have then really allowed people to think with AI intuition around what's the work that I do and how can I solve that myself. So I think that's all been really helpful and powerful.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. We will wrap up. I'm just going to launch a final poll, which is just to let us know how we did today. Your feedback helps us improve. Just to reiterate, the deck and the recording will come through to you tomorrow. We will continue to host these series on AI capability. It's something we feel very strongly about is really important. Also, keep an eye out if you have registered for the Humanova's report that will come in the next month, and we'll probably promote that as well once we receive it. We have one question. I just want to get this to while we're just ending the poll from Jill. How have
Yep.
Humannova and Elmo thought about redesigning roles as AI agents take on basic tasks?
Uh, Thanks for the question, Jill. I think with what we wanted to build is intuition. So your ability to collaborate with AI. And the reason we wanted to focus on that is that workers will be presented with many different tasks or workflows with AI. And how do they apply AI, even if they've never used AI in that task before? And that really comes down to intuition. And what research also shows is intuition is really important to be able to work with agents. Agents are incredibly capable, but they're not always reliable. And so having an intuition having that foundational intuition of working with AI is really critical to be able to work with agents. I know that Justin has done some work elsewhere in terms of the redesigning roles, but you've done that more internally.
Yeah, I think we're sort of still probably in the earlier stages within agents. I think one of the areas that I can talk through is we did a bit of a partnership and a sort of short sprint in one of our areas of the business, which actually was a co-design of a workflow with the team involved as well. So it was really around how can they do some of their research, how can they understand more about potential businesses that they're connecting and engaging with on a regular basis. And then we thought about how do we then turn their roles upside down to be thinking about how do they integrate that workflows and just change your habits in how you actually engage with the agent on a regular basis. So it wasn't, it's been really valuable and there's been a lot of energy and excitement. And what it really helped us do as well with the individuals involved in the project is they might have been a little bit skeptical or may have been a little bit slow on the uptake with AI, but they're now some of our biggest advocates as well. So that co-creation of a workflow design was really critical in doing that. So probably one example that we can share.
Yeah, and Justin, I think we all built custom gems, right, to do workflow analysis for everyone. So everyone at Elmo brought in a particular workflow that was annoying for them, and built a custom gem to understand how to use AI. So in some respects, people are beginning to redesign their own roles in that instance. So great question, Jill.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's it for now. We'll wrap up here. Really appreciate Sean and Justin you taking the time, sharing your knowledge with everyone. Thank you, everyone here for attending. We love that you come along to these, and we'll look out for the next one. Thanks, guys, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.